Garen, I know we touch on this just about every week now, the new conference format and questions around it, and looking at, as I mentioned earlier, the other game, the Crusaders Waratahs, again showing just how superior the New Zealand sides are proving to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand teams across the board, even the poor Blues who aren't in in playoff contention, they also won this weekend. They're having a fantastic time of things. You know, this whole new way that the conferences work and the overall logs, and then the top 4 point scorers, as long as you come top of your conference, you know, guaranteed a home quarterfinal. It's all very, very confusing to the neutral fan. But New Zealand look like they're going to get 4 of the 8 playoff teams. They're only going to host one of those quarterfinals, unbelievably, even though their teams are going to have maybe even the top 3 point scorers. So it doesn't seem fair on paper. It looks like they're going to have to travel. One of them will sort of travel to Australia. Looks like 2 will come to South Africa. But yeah, it doesn't sit well with the neutral. You know, even myself, I feel like it's, you know, there's no real reward for playing consistently the best, most attractive running rugby throughout the year. You get to, you know, finish among the top in your conference, but then yet have to travel.
Yeah.
So, you know, it certainly benefits South Africa from that point of view. Some South African teams not even playing New Zealand teams. So yeah, you know, I don't see how it's going to change for even next year, and there's even talk of expanding it further the year after next. So, you know, who knows what's going to happen in 2 years' time. But for the moment, you know, New Zealand certainly looking like the teams to beat. As you mentioned, the Crusaders knocking over the Waratahs, who are top of the Australian Conference. It's not the first time that a New Zealand team has beaten whoever's been top of the Australian Conference. It's happened sort of every week now. So, you know, it looks like the Crusaders and the Chiefs, they pretty much guaranteed their spots. Highlanders and Hurricanes, they sort of there or thereabouts at the moment, but they play each other next weekend, so massive match. Whoever wins that's likely to go through as well. You know, we've got the Highlanders who still have to play the Kings, so it seemed on paper you would think it's another 5 points for them, and the gap just gets wider and wider, you know, between those New Zealand teams who are still performing really well and the Blues, who I mentioned, I think have won 5 or 6 matches this year, which is significantly better under Tane Umaga this year than they were last year when they were really near the bottom. So massive gulf in form. Scary to think that New Zealand have lost so many players as well this year. If you're thinking like Dan Carter, Richie McCaw, Maa Nonu, Conrad Smith, Tony Woodcock, Kevin Mialami, then this goes on and on. They've got Sonny Bill Williams, Liam Messam out for the whole season, playing sevens. You know, those are top players who aren't in any of the teams. You know, you shudder to think how well they really would be if they had all that talent as well. So they've just unearthed amazing depth. I think it's going to come through when they play Wales in their mid-year series.
Yeah.
You're going to see some really new faces. Damien McKenzie, you know, he's sort of, you know, leading the try scoring and point scoring list as well. So, you know, but good for them. You know, they're the sort of nation that aren't scared to throw in youngsters at the highest level. It will be very interesting to see what Alistair Coetzee does on Saturday when he names his team. He's got no more matches to look at. He's pretty much hopefully made up his mind already. As Rob mentioned, you know, it'll be a travesty if the Lions players get overlooked. You know, in the past we've only really had Warren Whiteley representing the Lions, and they've been amongst the better South African teams in Currie Cup and Super Rugby over the last couple of years. You know, I think they deserve, out of, say it's a 28-man squad, I think they deserve at least 7 or 8, maybe even more players in that. It'll be really hard on them if they're not rewarded. For an island, against an island team which really hasn't fired of late, been pretty poor at the World Cup, weren't great at the Six Nations, lost a lot of players, and they're playing in South Africa. You'd think we'll throw some of those, not even youngsters, throw some of those Lions players into the mix at the highest level, see what they produce, and then, you know, we'll be better off for that heading into probably the more important rugby championship straight after.
Right, gents, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.